My name is Paola Morsiani, and I am so happy to see you. So proud that you're here, so honored. So thank you. Thank you also to the artists tonight for being here, for leaving your studios and coming to share your thoughts with us and your work with us. And thank you to my very many PAFA colleagues, some of whom are here, who have helped us to organize this panel. Thank you very much. We cannot do anything without you. So I'm going to introduce tonight's presentation by starting by recalling that, as you know, Martin Luther King has taught us that no society can fully repress an ugly past when the ravages persist into the present. Our sense of history is generally, at first, one of balanced rootedness. We sense that history guides us every day, especially as soon as our own personal stories begin accumulating as well. As a fairly new transplant in Philadelphia, I learned that history is the very key to get connected to this city. The more American history you know, the more you can make sense of its present landscape and dynamics. So we have invited tonight 4 artists, Zoe Charlton, Nell Painter, Kukuli Velarde, and Pepone Osorio. They all have been in residence at PAFA through the Brodsky Central Program, which commissions new work in print and handmade paper here at PAFA. As we will learn, each of them focuses on individual mediums and strategies, but their works are connected by a shared reference to history, personal and universal. Their very work teaches us, in fact, that narrated history, however, is not that solid or reassuring. It is constructed, it contains myths, and often omits the truth. As Nell Painter herself said in her 2006 history book, Creating Black Americans, historical narrative is selective, and the selection happens in the present, and the narrative changes over time. History is always present means that history is narrated from the perspective of the present, but also that disappeared chapters resurface when critical minds, like the mind of artists, look beyond constructs. This panel was planned when we submitted a request for a grant that makes it possible to the National Endowment of the Arts in 2020. We were inspired by the massive consciousness rising following the killing of George Floyd. We're now hosting it after the College Board decided under pressure to alter what young generations should learn about African American history and our country's narrative about history of race and racism. So this discussion remains urgent, and we are glad you're here to participate in it. I will now read the three artists will present tonight, and then Pepone Osorio will will lead a conversation with them, and I will read a bio introduction to each of the artists just before they come and give a short presentations. And we will start with Nell Painter. I'm going to share very minimal biographical information, but the work of these artists is influencing younger generations. They each have a very long list of exhibitions. Their work is collected across the world and in most American museums, and we're fortunate to have them tonight here with us because their speaking, teaching, governance, and artist residence commitments comprise a very long list. Nell Painter. The work of Nell Painter is supported by her transformative contribution as a leading historian of African American studies to the understanding of American history and the social constructions brought about by institutional frames of gender and race. As an artist, Painter shares her subjective, emotive, poetic, imaginative, and political perspective in a rich body of paintings and prints collected by museums nationally and internationally. At the Brodsky Center, PAFA, in collaboration with printer Justine Ditto, Painter created the William Still Triptych, a suite of etching and silkscreen prints inspired by the writings and life work of the 19th century Philadelphia-based abolitionist. Painter is the Edwards Professor of American History Emerita at Princeton University. She received her BFA from Maison Gros School of the Arts at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and her MFA from Rhode Island School of Design, and lives in East Orange, New Jersey. Painter's most recent solo exhibition, A Million Nels, was held this past fall at Time and Space Limited in Hudson, New York. Welcome.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you, all of you who were here. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. I want to tell you about the work that I made at the Brodsky Center a year ago, right? Yeah.
Yes.
This work began with actually the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, when I was invited to write 500 words on one of their star acquisitions and their star artifacts. They're going to do a coffee table book. It's probably coming out right about now. And I got to choose William Still's journal. And I'm going to show you at the very end how that all came to be. So it started actually with text. It started with history. Which is where I still feel very comfortable and very happy. So then the question was, I knew I had my subject matter because I wanted to bring together the Historical Society of Pennsylvania and the Brodsky Center. So I started with an image, a pattern, which you see here. And this is actually a Portuguese melon. I used to live in the Ironbound in Newark, which is very Portuguese and very Brazilian. And these are wonderful melons, but I was always intrigued by the appearance of this. And it's so organic, and also it's so moving in the literal sense. So I started with this pattern. And then I just made lots and lots and lots of drawings inspired by this pattern. And one reason, this is actually a kind of a print. It's a lino print, actually, that I made from a drawing of the melon. And here's more. So I just made a lot of these. And then it came time to work into this image. And whereas what you saw before are based on lino print, these are very digital. So the way I work is back and forth between the hand and the computer. I call it manual and digital. And so I made several digitally inflected pieces, more or less drawerly. And then I always knew that I wanted to use text from William Still's journals. And the journals are an incredible source of snapshots of people who were self-emancipating in the 1850s. So they would come from the slave lands, make their way to Philadelphia, and William Still would sit them down and interview them and ask what their names were, where they were from, what they did, and he would also note how they looked, how old they were, if they came with a family, and many of these groups were family groups. What I saw in William Still's journal was that the slave society to the south was hemorrhaging people. People were showing that the system did not work. So what captivated me was that many people would change their names when they got to Philadelphia. So you would get the names that they were sort of officially known by, and then they would get a new name. So this text, and I tried to reproduce the way that William Still wrote, is people's names and then their new names, their dates. And their new names. Now the last three, I made 3 drawings. If I remember correctly, this is Arrived New Names 1. This is Arrived New Names 2, which the Historical Society of Pennsylvania has acquired. And this is Arrived New Names 3. So these are 3 pieces that were made entirely by hand. And then this one, and this one are the William Still triptych that I made at the Brodsky Center. And then to get to my pages, the Historical Society, yes, it works. Good. So I have 2 pages, and here you see William Still's journal. And then here you see William Still. And then you have down at the bottom here, page by eloquent page, that's my writing about William Still's journal. And I list several instances of people who have new names. And then I have the triptych and the drawing that are in the collection now of the Historical Society. So that's what I want to tell you right now, and I'm looking forward to my colleagues talking about their work. Thank you.
Zoe Charlton. The large-scale drawings and sculpture installations by Zoe Charlton center around the Black female body and explore personal and universal stories of affirmation and empowerment in the context of systemic socioeconomic and cultural racism. At the Brodsky Center at PAFA, in collaboration with papermaker Nicole Donnelly, Charlton created Stroudsburg's, a one-on-one scale photographic self-portrait watermarked into white handmade cotton paper. A tour de force. Charlton holds an MFA from the University of Texas at Austin and a BFA from Florida State University in Tallahassee, and lives in Baltimore, Maryland. Her work has been featured in numerous national and international exhibitions, including the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, and Studio Museum in Harlem, in New York. It is in the collections of these museums, among many others. Her work is currently on view in the acclaimed exhibition, A Movement in Every Direction, Legacies of the Great Migration, curated by the Mississippi Museum of Art and the Baltimore Museum of Art, and opening at the Brooklyn Museum, New York, tomorrow. Yesterday. Opening yesterday. Has opened yesterday. Wonderful. Welcome, Zoe. Come on.
Hi, everyone. I know there's a call and response that happens. And when you respond, it helps me feel less nervous. So thank you.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much, Paula, for the opportunity to make new work. And I thank Judith Brodsky for founding the Brodsky Center. And I thank Nicole Donnelly for her generosity and vision to bring an abstract idea to life. I am grateful to live and work on the unceded ancestral land of the Nacotchtank and Piscataway people in Baltimore, Maryland, and Fairfax, Virginia. I say ashe to the lives and experiences of African, Black American, and immigrant communities that enabled the building of this country. My primary studio practice is figure drawing. I make collages, installations, animations, and videos, and I frequently collaborate with other artists. Earlier work used the female nude, the Black female nude, as a metaphor to call attention to my concerns. And I make these drawings in a variety of sizes, but the bulk of my work is comprised of large-scale, life-size renderings of Black women that are often isolated from a background and wearing props. The work uses humor to comment on the figure's relationships with the objects that they wear or how they're adorned. And although the work, though, may appear humorous at times, my focus remains on the dilemmas of the figure's relationships to the objects and their environments. My larger works are based on sketches and modestly scaled collages that I made between 2008 and 2013. The images of the objects refer to decorations and memorabilia in my family's homes, old toys, tourist-grade African statues purchased at flea markets and retail stores, and the landscape of the southeastern United States, and sticker books that I made as a child. I'm sure y'all all have sticker, I don't know. I would assume that everybody did that. I scanned those stickers and decals and then enlarged them and combined them with graphically painted objects, and I combined them with painted figures as well to make these large-scale drawn collaged installations. And this is called Companion Constant, and it is about Kalulu, the young enslaved Tanzanian child turned adopted son/companion of white explorer Henry Morton Stanley, who died at age 13 in 1877. My installation imagines Kalulu as an adult. In this double self-portrait, he's carrying the weight of African colonization on his back. And there's a symbolic and unsuccessful arc that tries to unite his two selves, the companion of a colonizer on one hand, and in the other, the subject of colonization. However, much of my collage and sculptural work has its origins in family history. And this is an image of Everlina Bates, who's on the far left. That's my grandmother, and I'm named after her, Everlina, and some of her children. I'm fascinated by my grandmother's life, a woman who had a third-grade education. She sharecropped. She had 10 children, 9 who lived to adulthood, and was a domestic worker. She started purchasing land in the panhandle of Florida in the early 1940s. And again, my grandmother is on your far left, and my grandfather is the far right. My mother is right next to my grandmother, and she's the baby of the family. And this is where I get to tell you that the elder, my Aunt Bessie, who's at the end, turns 99. Well, she's 98 right now. She has outlived all of her siblings and her only child, and has outlived one of her grandchildren.
Wow.
She eats fried fish, collard greens, cornbread, and drinks a couple of beers every day. So I'm vegan. Obviously, I'm not going to make it. So the Compromise series is about my grandmother's life. And it combines a figurative element on the bottom or sometimes at the top, and it's drawn combined with collage landscapes. And the titles of the work in this large series are lines from Frederick Douglass's speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." And it's a speech that he gave on July 5th in 1852. And this text reminds me of my grandmother and the joy and the audacity that she had to live and raise children and exist in her world and her community on terms she accepted and shaped for herself and her growing family. The work, and most of the work in this series measures about 110 inches by 70 inches, depending on the amount of horizontal wall space that I have. And sometimes the work is anchored by a drawn body, and other times drawn objects that were owned by my grandmother. This is My First Name is Hers, and it's an invented family crest depicting 2 of the 6 Harrington and Richardson Topper model shotguns that she owned. And it's created with collage plants and landscapes that reference my memory of her property and the wooded areas that surrounded her home, with planted tea roses, peach trees, pecan trees, sugar cane, and a farm behind the house, horses, hogs, cats and dogs, towering live oak trees, and her ubiquitous light blue house. With the expertise of builders and artists at Artscape, which is an artist and curatorial residency in San Antonio, Texas, we fashioned a half-scale replica of her home, turned upside down, with small light blue painted and glittered suburban homes in its belly. So those are model train houses from like the Lionel train line that were repainted. And I love this image because it really gives you some insight into the scale of this piece. And this house shows up in a few other drawings as a symbol of place and conditional belonging. And here it is again as a pop-up in a large-scale installation that includes an 18-foot graphite drawing and a 10 by 16 by 5-foot faux pop-up book. And this is what's currently at the Brooklyn Museum. I am fortunate to have my work supported by peers, by residencies, and by universities, and by PAFA. Nicole Donnelly, resident collaborative papermaker and founder of Paper Think Tank, Kaylee Brown, master printmaker, specifically in woodblock, and she will be graduating this semester with her MFA, I believe. And Zofia Shamera, a papermaker and sculptor. By the way, I love it when Zofia pops up on Instagram Live. It's fascinating to listen to her describe her process while she works, so mad shout out to Zofia. And she graduated last year from PAFA. And so opportunities like this allow me to expand, to stretch and to flex, and to learn some new things. I am a good student, Nicole. I hope I remain a good student. This is an image of Nicole Donnelly and I in the papermaking studio. This is an 8 foot by 4 foot bed in which we made handmade paper out of cotton and abaca. Yes! See, I am a good student. By the way, that's an A. So what Nicole did is she had this image of me printed on acetate and then turned into a silk screen. And that's what water was shot through that. I mean, I'm saying this all in lay terms, so just forgive me for my lack of proper terminology, but you get it. And I love showing this image because there was victory. Victory we finally had. But we created 4 unique variants. And I was an artist in residence here in March and April of 2022. And this is a small series, as Paola said, of handmade paper works. And the title of this series is called Struldbrugs, which comes from Jonathan Swift's novel Gulliver's Travels. It's one of my favorite books. The Struldbrugs are a class of immortals who are declared legally dead at age 80. They lose their property, their income, and their agency, and they live wretchedly at state expense. Oh my gosh. They cannot be employed, they cannot serve as citizens, and their heirs, if they have any, gain access to their estates. They become visibly invisible. They are easily recognized by a red dot that's above their left eyebrow, and you know, they suffer a lot of ailments. They lose their hair, they lose their eyesight, all sorts of things, but they're still there. Remember, they're immortal. In Struldbrugs, my image, which is a self-portrait, is interpreted as a life-size watermark on handmade cotton paper, and it's anchored at the bottom by a stenciled pulp paper painting of my grandmother's estate. Oops. And this is a detail so you can see the watermark. And that's me standing with my back to the viewer, looking over my shoulder in slight defiance. And I'm both material and subject. I'm visible and invisible. I am important and easily overlooked, but what remains constant and visible is a marker of place, which is the evidence of life lived, even when I, or a person like me, is no longer in existence. Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful. All right, and now we have Kukuli. Here it is. Kukuli Velarde, in her multimedia work in ceramic, painting, and drawing, Kukuli Velarde foregrounds the female brown body in the context of visual motifs evoking pre-colonial Latin American and Western colonial artifacts, contemporary comic literature, and advertising. Her work combines lived experience and fabricated projections of Latinx identity to explore issues of beauty outside the canons. At the Brodsky Center at PAFA, in collaboration with printer Justine Ditto, Velarde is developing right now a lithograph that connects her Peruvian background with her Philadelphia roots through the shared histories of indigenous Wari and Lenape people and her family life in Kensington. Velarde received her BFA from Hunter College in New York. She was born in Peru and lives in Philadelphia. Her work is in the collections of the Museo de Arte Contemporáneo de Lima, Peru, and PAFA, among many others. Velarde's solo exhibition corpus, organized by the College of Charleston Halsley Institute of Contemporary Art, Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center, and the University of Texas in San Antonio, closes tomorrow at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. Welcome.
I'm gonna read because otherwise I go like this.
Ama mama le waka mon kichu bahare me jaya kotera mosarme ama ta italia yake mon kichu bahare me jaya kotera mosarme.
You just heard the rock band Uxpa singing in Quechua, a language spoken in Peru and neighboring countries for centuries. They added the sound of a violin from the musical accompaniment of the scissor dancers from the Peruvian Andes, a European instrument adapted through centuries to Andean sensibility, becoming a vehicle of rite. The scissor dancers are in Peru legendary and popular and funny and serious and tragic all at once. Here, they are summoned in another contemporary artistic expression through Renata Flores, Peruvian Quechua singer of trap.
Mana pipas kawanju, mana ni matabas. Ati ni juru aida, imay tamunani. Aparis pa ami, tukuiro naman ang kuya ikunju. Imas kada, hinas pandi, kaparis kami. Uyarin is kaiki. Uyarin is kaiki. Hawani kanay mantuta pikas kay pikawani at kita hinatu yarini hati niskanta mana pipas kawanju mana ni mata pasati ni chu luay tarima itamurani habanis pamni tokoy luna mana uyarin kuchu dimas kita hinas panini habanis akni tokoy kalpan wana ima mana pipas kawanju mana ni mata pas ati ni chu luay tarima itamunani Aparis pa ami, tukuiro naman ang kuya ikuncho. Imas kada, hinas pandi, ini kaparis kami. Echa kaparita, sumata takisa, chanata, uyari kaku. Una kuna, yakisa, awani, aswana na aida. Uyaro na kuna, manangay taros pa. Lukang chik, uyo kong chik, ati was kanita, magkatarantis pa. Uyari is kaiki. Uyarin is kaiki. Mancha kuchori maita. Mancha kuchori maita.
Finally, the Caesar dancers themselves, characters of religious nature whose predecessors are lost in oblivion. I have added some snippets of music throughout. They are included as examples of the continuous exchange, absorption, and recreation of Western culture as vehicle of continuity and as cultural landscape. Most musical expressions in Peru, and everything else, have a very Spanish sounding, which frankly is evidence of how colonized we are. I am a Peruvian-born American citizen, and my country of origin, a 200 years old political, social, and geographical construct, has still a strong presence in my aesthetics. The territory that is known as Peru has been the stage of many cultural developments for millennia. Civilizations such as Chavín, Paracas, Moche, Nazca, Tiwanaku, Huari, Chimú, Lambayeque, Cupisnique, Ica, Inca, among others, sprang within and beyond the territory and created culture.
Esta canción que canto, amigos, es una más de dolor. Si es que me ven llorando, amigos, discúlpenme por favor.
Bailando con euforia.
Traigo en el alma pena y llanto que no puedo contener. Y es que la quiero tanto y tanto, pero me tocó perder. Y ahora tengo que olvidarla también, y arrancarla de mi alma y mi ser, y darme el amor que quema en mi piel, que no quede nada.
Que no quede huella, sino y que no quede huella. Estoy seguro que tú, mi amor, de ti me recuerdas.
Within and beyond the republican borders of Peru, from north to south, within the whole extension of these lands, ancestors were inventing their world, made entirely in their image and after their own likeness. Here in the Americas, life was thriving. Christopher Columbus arrived in 1492 and changed forever the course of that history. My work has frequently revolved around the consequences of European invasion and the intricate cultural strategies of resistance and negotiation developed by population. The nature of what was going to be my creative work became apparent in 1991 when the Western world was preparing to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Columbus' enterprise. It sprouted from a feeling of impotence. I remember playing with a shape and going nowhere with it until I began placing rusted, dusty nails left in a corner nearby when I found my voice. I felt for the first time that my thoughts and my feelings connected and materialized through my hands. There in the spot, I began my first series, We the Colonized Ones. On the left, the mother who gives birth to mixed-race children. At her feet, small pieces I carried in the subway train, the children who never had a chance to be conceived. When people prompted me to show my baby, I would take the opportunity to talk about the celebrations.
Vamos a ver, ay, vamos a ver.
After We, the Colonized Ones, I have often worked in series. One of them is Plunder Me Baby. I always wonder what would happen if pre-Columbian ceramics in any museum of the world were to wake up from centuries of sleep. What would they think or feel out of context and stripped of meaning? What would it be for them to be prisoners in a beautiful display or stuck in captivity in an anthropological museum's storage room? I imagine them in despair and fear and overcoming their defeat, owning themselves, not anymore victims but witnesses of history transcending their own existence. The title of the series is a defiance, a teasing invitation to futile aggression, for they are beyond harm. Individually, their titles are composed by slurs, the ones still very much in use in Peru and Latin America. There is a sardonic commentary following each of them, stressing frequent stereotypes and condescending social perceptions. In addition, since each piece is based in an actual pre-Columbian figurine, they all have the name of the culture as well as the date that such a style was in use. Corpus. My last series, now going in a 3-year itinerant exhibition, Corpus, narrates the history of my country of origin, incorporating pre-Columbian and colonial sensibilities by visually mimicking syncretism within a contemporary narrative. It summons the presence of unknown ancestral entities. disguised with the gilded garments of Catholic sculptures, that are part of the festivities of Corpus Christi in Cusco, Peru, since 1572. This is my corpus.
Miraya Hueracocha. En la cámara.
They are accompanied by the imaginary clicking and flashing of tourist paparazzis, pacing their journey with a military march titled Peruvians are passing or Pasan los Peruanos. Processions often have the musicality of military marches. I wonder why. The voice of my father in the background reciting a prayer to Huiracocha. I got pregnant at 48, and I never felt more beautiful. I gave birth my vida, and she's now 11 years old. In 2018, I began a series titled A Mi Vida, To My Vida, which are portraits of my love for her, but not only. The pieces speak of the unbearable pain of a parent and a child when separated by force because the color of their skin at the border of this country. A Mi Vida is an urgent request for empathy and protection against the cruelty of such an imposed separation. Each piece has been made to be carried by a mother's arms. Their ideal presentation state is within your embrace. It is also a performance. This one here took place at the Clay Studio in 2010. To end, let me show you my last project, the first piece of the series Huacas and Pachamamas. I'm working in a new body of work, having in mind ubiquity and religions and the power of acknowledgement and of showing respect to bring them all forward. Huaca del Agua, it said that Huacas were perhaps mediators, transitional thresholds, entities, places, all of the above, or something else we can't quite describe. My Huaca del Agua consists in 5 units stacked on top of each other, each representing different history periods of Peru. Finally, I want to tell you about a wonderful experience that I have had with the fellowship at the Brodsky Center. We are in the middle of working with Justin Dito, a print that is going to be part of my series Huacas and Pachamamas. For the interest in this case is finding the ubiquitous, you say ubiquitous? Ubiquity? of non-Christian entities beyond Peru. I think that all entities and all deities have the right to exist everywhere. And I'm very thankful to the Brodsky Center for giving me the opportunity to do this work. Thank you.